Hi, my name is Jeff Rhodes, and this is another video on Office 365 based on my book, The Office 365 Techniques in SharePoint, PowerApps, Power BI, and more. And what we're going to do today is talk about search in SharePoint and how you can build search into a PowerApps. So first, real quick on the book, if we kind of click it on Amazon, you see it came out in November. And if we scroll down, you kind of see how it's doing today. So number 12 in SharePoint books, so not too bad. So pick up a copy if you're interested, and be sure to subscribe to my channel as well. So let's talk about help desk and sites. So one example I did in the book and that we've implemented at the Air Force Academy is doing an entire help ticketing system in SharePoint and then viewing the results in Power BI and so forth. One of the things that came up this week, which kind of made sense, but I hadn't really thought of it yet, is searching to all the old tickets so we can see what we did the last time. And, just using our sample site here, I made for the book and I'd cleared it out, but I just added a ticket here, and this is our data source. So I just got one ticket in there. I've called it test issue. And notice I said, okay, and I need to do the description, need to update my BIOS, and if I go over to my notes, you can see I also have the word BIOS in here. So that's basically what we have. We'll see the one at the Air Force Academy in a minute. So the first issue that comes up is, well, if you're familiar with the old versions of SharePoint, there used to be a search button here, a search field. So there's really no easy way to search it right here. Okay, and now we can fix that. So we'll change that if we want. So we can go over to list settings. And if we go into the advanced settings and go all the way down to the list experience, if we go back to the classic experience, then we now get search thing. And you'll see I've been practicing here. So first, let me search for just a normal field. So if I just search for test, you see I get my issue. But if I search for BIOS, press return, nothing. And what happens is multi-line text things are not done, and multi-line fields are not by default searchable. So that's a problem, okay? Next thing, when I was doing some research, if you're using Teams, kind of nice. So I'm going to go over, I don't have any Teams in my test site. So this is actually on the Air Force Academy. And you see, so I went and I created a channel to do with help tickets and said, oh, okay, let me see if I can add. So I went in this way and added SharePoint, and then it'll show you my list, and then I have my help ticket. So since I already did it, I won't do it again. And that brought me over to help tickets. And what basically did is, you can see there I've got a lot here. And I've got a grouped view as my default view there. And what's nice is it gives me a search there as well. Now, when I did the search, it turned out it just picked up whatever SharePoint did. And so when I searched for BIOS, if it didn't happen in the single line text, it wouldn't show up here either. So, but once we were done, this is a nice solution because you can do it right inside of Teams. And even if you don't want to change to that classic experience, you can at least get a nice search here. So if it all works, I'll show you now, but if I type BIOS, I get a bunch here, including some that, if I go over and look, these were in the notes. Can't really see it there. There's the note there, and it wasn't in the single line. So that all works. So let's go back to SharePoint. So how can we get to add these extra to add those columns? So what we have to do is you have to go to site settings, and then we actually have to go to the site collection. So you may not have these rights, but if you do, if you don't have them, then ask for your site collection administrator. And then let me see if I can remember. Oh yeah, then we need to do the search schema here, and we need to add a manage property. So the gist, if I'd have thought this through when I made the ticket in the first place, I should have made like a site property, a site column. And if I'd have done that, they already are searchable. But since I just created a column and called it description, another one called it notes, it wasn't a site column, then I need to do this. So I'm going to say new manage property, and I'm going to call it help ticket description. It's of type text, and most important, need to make it searchable. And I may make it queryable as well. Then I scroll all the way down and I add a mapping. And again, it's not obvious at all, so you got to find an article here, because you can see I already did a search. So I need to search for, it's for Office Web Services, I believe is what the OWS, but you see a lot, and you'll see I talk about it in my book for doing various things. So I'm going to pick that one and say OK. And that's pretty much it. So I add one. Now you'll see what happens. It gets a little more hairy, and if I really had thought through the column naming, I would have made it more clear which one, because I could have more than one description. Because if I do it again, if I do help ticket notes, do the same thing, make it searchable and queryable, come down, add a mapping. I search for OWS notes. Turns out I have two of them, and I don't really, there are some tools, but it's not obvious which one it is. So I'm just going to add both of them and search. Because it could be basically what happens, I've got two different lists that have notes, so they'll both get searched in here. So we'll do it. Now, what we then want to do is re-index the list. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily happen right away, but let's go try it and see what happens. Oh, you see I've got several different, I've got two different ticket lists too that I was messing around with. So let me get to the right. Oh, I can go back over here, go to that one, get to the help tickets. All right, so let's first just see if that was enough. So we'll search for BIOS. Not yet. So we can try to tell it to, oh, right, because I was looking up here for list settings, but since I've changed back to the classic interface, I have to go to list settings here now. And I can go, I believe it's in advanced as well. Scroll down and say re-index list, and I get this message. And it'll do it the next time it crawls it, but we'll see if it's fast enough, if it did it or not. Not yet. Let's include them again. Now what I found at the Air Force Academy is once it at least went overnight, I tried it the next day, that those started showing up. And those, so now we can use both Teams and SharePoint to search. But for the rest of this, I was not patient enough for that. I thought, well, let's see if we can use PowerApps to take care of the problem as well. So we're going to finish the video with that. So we'll go over to PowerApps. And what I'm going to do is just build one from scratch. In this case, I'm really just targeting for my technicians, and so I'm not really that concerned. They may do them on a mobile device, but it's not the primary consideration. So it's not necessarily, best practice what I'm going to do here, but I want to show the concept. So I'm going to say help tickets search here, and I'm going to do it format as a tablet. So it's nice and big. All right, I'm going to skip all this. But the main thing I want to do is, the gist of the solution is that we want to load all our tickets into a collection and then to a variable, and then search that variable. Okay, so there's problem searching the list directly, delegation, and so forth. And so we do it this way. So I'm going to rename it, and I'm just going to call it load collection screen. All right, I'm going to go over here to data sources, and I'm going to look for SharePoint. And I'm going to add on my account here. And I got to find my sample site. I think that's the right one. And now I've got two called help tickets. Oh, that's a problem. All right, well, that's good. Let's go back and see if we can figure out. Well, I guess we'll know. I'll just pick one. And we'll see. It's probably not worth messing around with it. If it doesn't work, we'll go try the other one. You can see it's connection. Let's just check this is. Oh, no, that's help tickets 1 I was in. That's not the greatest naming convention of all time. Let's see. Oh, and that was help space ticket. So let's let's do it again. SharePoint. Oh, and this was, let me make sure I have the right. Yeah, it is samples. Yeah, see, this one doesn't have a space. So actually it was the right one that I wanted. And we'll delete this one. All right. So what I want to do back on my thing is I just want a button. So I'm just going to make it nice and big. And for the text of it, we'll say load help tickets. There we go. And on select, which is what it started at, what we're going to say is we're going to use a function called clear collect. And we'll just call it help ticket collection. It's whatever we want to call it. That's our variable name. And our help tickets. Whoops. There we go. So that will make our variable. So while we're doing that, so basically when it's done, we can put a semicolon and we'll say navigate. Even though I haven't created the other thing yet. So let's actually, let me just put that in the clipboard right now because we're not quite ready for that. So let's go back to our tree view. And I don't really like things named that way, so we'll just call it load collection button. There we go. And let's say new screen. So I'm going to say new screen with a list on it. That'll basically just give us a gallery already. And we'll just call this display ticket screen. There, now we can go back here and we'll put it back out of the clipboard. And we'll say navigate, and it gives us our screen then, and then we can do like a little animation or whatever. Whoops. All right, so that will do that. So let's try it so far and just see what happens. So we can hit play here, and we load the tickets, and then it goes to our screen, and we haven't set this up yet. So far, so good. All right, so I'm going to call this, rename it, we'll just call it Tickets Gallery. And our items will be help ticket collection. So we'll point into that, and then what we do here is we're going to make that nice and big. Right now, I don't need this guy, which we'll show you how to fix all that. Okay, so actually might as well just do it now. Let's see, so we got, let's we'll go back. Let's get some more titles and stuff in here first. So let's do that, and then we'll delete that. So what we can do here is say, okay, what goes with what? Okay, and so what we want to know is pretty much, we don't really care so much about the description. We want to put, and when we do, by the way, see how it's got the HTML. So we want to build a special control for that. So I'm just going to put the issue category there, and we don't want the compliance asset ID. We want something like the, maybe we'll put the department. That might be something that might be interesting. All right. And then what we can do is we can insert, make sure we're clicked on this, and we can insert, and instead of doing just a text input, we'll put the HTML in and make this bigger, all of it. And that'll be, we'll rename that just to call it description label. And we'll do one more of those. Copy and paste. And we'll call that the notes label. And then what I like to do on this, if you look at, I like to kind of say what it is because it's not all that obvious. So I would say department, like that. And this will be, oops, didn't quite go in the issue category. And then here we can see it's this item, so we can, there's another screen where we can set it up as well. Actually, let's do it that way because it's a little bit nicer. We can come in and edit the fields and come in, and then we can set this down, drop down to be the description, and set that drop down to be the notes. So that's a little bit easier. And then notice how it shows up nicely instead of all those tags, since we made it an HTML thing. And then what I like to do is, again, so that it's clear what's what. And now we want lots of space here. So notice what happens. You saw I had those errors earlier because of the fact that a lot of this is tied to this image, but I really don't have an image that I want. So let's just go ahead and take care of that while we're at it and see how to fix it. So you get these arrows and you, oops, the wrong one. There we go. Say edit in the formula bar. And all that we need is, we need this to be something else. So instead of, we'll use the title 2 instead. So we're just, all that's because we were using an object to set up the sizes and so forth that we then deleted. I'm not sure what that 24 is, so we'll just get rid of it anyway. I'm still not sure why it doesn't like that. Let's see what our title 2 is. All right, let's keep going. Oh, so how about we just put the width in there? All right. Title 2. All right, well, let me pause for a minute as I mess with all these. You don't need to watch me fix all these. All right, well, I saw what I was doing it's kind of hard to tell what it was a property of, and what I was doing was giving values for the title to width as I was using itself, so I was given like a circular reference here, so you can see I can kind of move that around, and then this one is tied to that, those two together. So that was kind of all. In this case, we'll keep going. I don't really need to go in and grab that. I don't need to select that little one because I'm really just looking to get all my info right here and go forward. So in any event, that's how it should work. So let's go back to our first screen, see if we can, so let's run it. Load help tickets. Oh, and sorry, I forgot the search part of it. Okay, so this would show all the tickets, but the whole idea, so I need to take this gallery. I got kind of hung up on that part. Let's move this down. And I'm going to say, okay, well, this will be ticket search. And then I'll insert text input. Make that nice and big. We may insert a search icon. Put that over there too, just so they know what it's for. Something like that. And I'll call this the search text. And by the way, we didn't really get in. The reason we did this collection and so forth in the first place is so we don't run into delegation problems where we only can get like the first 500 records. We need it to be all of it. So that's why we throw it all into a collection. And that's the part that if we ended up with 25,000 records and we're trying to run this on a phone, this could be a problem. But right now we've got about 2,000, and eventually we'll kind of clear out some of the old ones maybe. But as long as you're running on a computer, you're probably doing fine here, or a decently powered phone. So, all right, so instead of just getting the whole collection here, we're going to go ahead and filter. So let's add filter. And then we want to see what we're doing. So we got search text dot text in. And then I don't want to get any kind of case sensitivity. So I'm going to say lower and then notes. Or I usually use the or this way. I think it'll work either way. And we'll just do the same thing. Do that over and over. So I'm not necessarily letting them do it in everything, but I'm trying to find the key areas that it might be. So in this case, I had both an Office 365 and not Office 365, but we'll not worry about all that complexity, but we'll just say, okay, it's in the display name for now. And go like that. And then I'll often format that so we can see it better. So let's bring that back up. So now notice now it's empty. Let's run it one more time. And load the help tickets. Oh, and I'll change that hint text in a minute and put the text in BIOS. So it loaded that in there. But if I put George in there, it doesn't show up. So it's picking it up on, whatever we typed it in. Okay, so a couple things back on here. So I don't want any default text in there. But what I do want is to go to our hint text and say, enter your search term in lowercase. Because I don't want to, if they say something like BIOS all in caps, I want to make sure it still finds it. And so I don't want, I just made everything lowercase in my filter, and so I want them to type it in lowercase. I mean, I could also, actually even better, I didn't really think about that. I'll just say enter your search term, and we'll go back here. And we could, if we wanted to, we could say like lower that part as well. So that's probably a better solution. I may change my other app just to do the same, because that's then really doesn't matter. Whatever they type, we'll put it in a lowercase. All right, and we'll go back to this one and run it. Load our collection. And again, to get rid of those. But if I say BIOS, it's there, or any combination. So we're picking that up. Or if I put in, update, would find it as well. So I'll have to look exactly why it's picking up. Since the search text is none, it basically not doing any filtering at all. But again, if I put something that's definitely not there, it will take it away. So hopefully that helps, gives you an idea of how we can use that and get yourself to very quickly do the search before we end up. Let's see if we did our if our filter came in yet. So let's, our updates, the crawl. And so it did it during the time that we were in the video. So notice I can now search based on the description and the notes based on those managed properties that we did. So hopefully find this useful. Again, subscribe to my channel, pick up the book, and leave me some comments. I appreciate your time. Thank you.